think the exercise of the unwords makes you go incredibly deep into what matters to you versus like how you operate every day. Also, unwavering, realizing I cannot move away from my core values. And that's so important. And, let's face it, higher up you get in an organization, or maybe you're dealing with big clients or whatever business you're in, there are times when you're asked or pushed to sacrifice a little bit on your core beliefs for the good of the business. Untethering yourself from, some of those very strict business requirements is what you have to do to get to great design, great creative that emotionally moves people. We call it freedom within a framework, right? Like yes, well, let's build some fences, but within that, let's go crazy in order to really push the envelope and move people. It's not about being soft, it's about being honest, right? And transparent. I would like to know if there's one belief in like human nature that has changed for you.
Hey everyone, do me a quick favor and double check that you are a follower or subscriber wherever you listen to the show. I'd be unconditionally grateful. Every new follower, listener, and subscriber helps us keep creating content we love and that you enjoy. It's the best way to ensure you never miss one of my Unconversations. You are on this journey with us, and thank you for that. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Unconversations podcast. I am your host, Dr. Alison, and today I am just extremely honored to welcome Trina Roffino to the show. Trina, thank you so much for your willingness to come on today. I am just extremely looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Of course. Thank you so much, Dr. Alison. I've been looking forward to this very much. So I'm excited to visit with you today and explore all sorts of cool spaces.
You are the founder of Project Unbroken, and it is just an incredible organization. One, it's partly that has impacted your life, but the organization supports children and their families who have lost a parent to suicide. But what you are doing in helping other families is just really just incredible work. And you also recently just stepped down from a president and CEO role of TMA, which is the marketing arm, which I absolutely love that name, by the way. But this is no small company. This is a very huge global marketing agency, and you have worked with such incredible companies and helping them with their marketing and their branding all around the world. Because you just recently left that role so you could focus all your time with Project Unbroken.
Yes, I was at TMA for 26 years. So it's been quite a dramatic, it's more than a step. I feel like it's a giant leap of faith, but I'm going through that transition right now. So it's interesting.
Which was really incredible because you and I got together in regards to doing your prep meeting. And, it's one thing when I meet with a guest and we're talking about one aspect, and they've been in the new space maybe for a little bit. But for you, you have been working on Project Unbroken as well as your commitment to TMA, and then to take that leap so you can focus solely on this incredible work. We will definitely be getting into further as we go into the podcast with one another. But as I like to start every episode of the Unconversations podcast, we like to start with the unword effect. And it was really fun meeting with you because I enjoyed talking about your process. And then you really took your words really seriously, and we had kind of a good time going through each one of those. But what I loved most about your words is, I mean, I really felt that they were mind, body, and soul with you on so many levels. And I did ask you the question, and I hope you would let our listeners know what you said to me. But I did ask you if these words would have changed. And I know one specifically probably would not have. But if those words would have changed if this life altering experience did not occur in your personal life. But if you could please talk to us about your process, and then we'll go through each of those words individually.
Sure. I did take this very seriously because as I listened to other guests on your show, there's some fabulous words, and you want to be original but authentic. And I just went and started a brain dump of all the unwords I could think of, and they absolutely were very different. I'm different than I was before, so they would have been a very different group of words had you met me, before 2018. And so I think, I had three unwords. Well, I had five actually. Now that I think about it, I had five. We got down to three. Um,
Let's start with Unbroken, because that really I think sort of sets the stage too for how you and I sort of got introduced to one another, about also having you on the show.
yes. Well, Unbroken was the obvious one for me, just because it is the name of my nonprofit, Project Unbroken. And Unbroken really signifies how I'm living my life now. And that was, the other words came into play when I was really had to get, like you said, heart and soul, go really deep on. I think the exercise of the unwords makes you go incredibly deep into what matters to you versus like how you operate every day. It was just deeper than that. So I loved that. But Unbroken really came about. I lost my husband to suicide in 2018. And after that, I realized pretty quickly, having a teenage son, there were no resources out there for us, not many anyway, to understand how to navigate that aftermath. And after I healed enough, I decided to found this nonprofit called Project Unbroken. But the word unbroken is so special because at that moment, with any tragedy, you're shattered, and lost. And I went to a healing retreat, and we did this artsy craftsy exercise they signed me up for. And I was like, come on, okay. And I get in there and we shatter this porcelain bowl. And I was like, oh, that was sort of emotional. That was a thing. Um, and then I'm learning, okay, this is the Japanese art form of Kintsugi. It's a 15th century art form, and it's all about you don't discard what's broken, you rebuild it, and you show the scars. And so you are stronger and more beautiful having been broken. And that's what unbroken is. So I'm working with this shattered porcelain sitting there, or ceramic, sorry, and you end up putting it back together, gluing it, and then you paint the cracks with scars. And it was such a profound exercise. I think I cried all night that night on like what the pieces meant, the pieces I left out, why they didn't fit anymore, and how that was an analogy for my life. And I realized, okay, this wasn't a hippy dippy exercise. This was amazing. And they did this for a reason. And I really adopted that in my life. And Unbroken became the visual and the inspiration for the nonprofit, where we're helping people heal and show their scars so that other people can see how to heal. And so Unbroken was obvious for me, and it's how I try to live my everyday now.
Yeah, I love that. I think when you go through an exercise that you think is kind of like hokey, you're probably saying to yourself like, I went through something really, unbelievably so challenging to describe, and you want me to put some pieces together here. But when you can sort of take a moment to see that from all those pieces, how something you can create so beautiful, back to, it may not be in its, obviously its original state, of course, right? Mm-hmm. But that it all of a sudden now may have had these blemishes, but it still created a really beautiful piece. And I learned about this, funny enough, at a restaurant, and I was complimenting these glasses, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because usually if there's something broken, I get very like feng shui panic about it. And when they told me about why they put these, why they went through that and for the glasses, I was like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. So when you were telling me about that when we met, it even made me think about my own journey, and what I've gone through. That yes, there are still there's still these pieces, but there's something still in the scars, as you said, but it still creates this really beautiful and a different way that we can look at things. So I think that was really just beautiful the way you described that. Your next word I thought was really cool. And I thought it was really cool just in the way this word has been brought up a few times, but the way you sort of tackled it, I thought was really unique and different and very meaningful. And that was untethered.
Yes. Untethered has a lot of meaning for me, both from my corporate role to personally, right? And I know it can mean a lot of different things, but again, when I really dug deep to figure out what these words should be for this conversation, untethered was such a part of my my life stage of, okay, you're fine. It sounds crazy. You're over 50. You finally grow up and realize you should stop being a people pleaser, maybe, right? And so sort of untethering from all those expectations I would carry that were so heavy. So untethering from expectations of family, friends, culture, anything. And I realized my life can be so much more rich if I can just do that. So that is something I try to remind myself of on the daily, I feel like. And then, from a work perspective, I've been in the creative industry my entire career, and untethering yourself from, some of those very strict business requirements is what you have to do to get to great design, great creative that emotionally moves people. We call it freedom within a framework, right? Like let's build some fences, but within that, let's go crazy in order to really push the envelope and move people. So untethered has a lot of meaning in work and personal for me.
I think almost the untether is almost like the actionable moment of that, where I do like the way that you say it's that moving forward in a way, and so I thought that was kind of a really interesting. That was sort of a shift in my mind when you said untethered. That sort of made me think that it was almost the extension in a way of the unapologetic word that some of my leaders have used.
Yeah, for me, it's about giving myself permission to untether, because that's what it's. I set my own limits. I'm probably the hardest person on myself, as we all are, right? Hardest even.
If you're very high achieving, yes, I would agree.
So I have to give myself permission to do it. I don't think anyone else cares if I apologize or not. It's like my issue. So, yeah.
What was it about? Was there a moment? Is this a recent moment, or one that maybe you learned at TMA, or a combination of where that untethered for you was like, yeah, I need to do this for myself. I mean, that's what you were just saying. What was there something that clicked, or an experience, or something where that really kind of was like, whoa, I really, it's untethered and this is what I need to do?
Yes. There were probably many micro moments, but the biggest one I can remember, and I think I told you about this when we met, or mentioned it, is obviously as you move up in your career, there's this expectation that of course you're going to fulfill the next level and the next level, and you're going to keep going. And same in your personal life, certain expectations. But I had reached my dream, being CEO of an agency, an incredible group of people I get to work with. We do amazing work. We're doing Super Bowl ads, and we're doing activations that engage millions of people, and work that makes a difference in the world. And I found myself at the Super Bowl last year, and I'm sitting there in this incredible event, small audience. Chris Stapleton is playing on the stage, and it's by all means like, this is the coolest thing ever, and I'm sitting there with all these wonderful people I love around me that I work with. And I wished I was at home for a minute. And I was like,
Wow.
I don't want to be here. And it was so weird. I've never felt like that. I've always been caught up in the, this is so great. We're going to do this, and we're going to achieve the next thing. And people are thrilled. And I sat there and I was homesick, and I just wanted to get out of there. And I realized, okay, I think I need to move on. I think this is it. And
Wow.
this is going to disappoint a lot of people. And that was scary.
Wow. Yeah.
I knew it's what I needed, but I was so worried about, that expectation. And that was the strongest I've ever felt that before in something, in your gut. And I listened. So that's good, but it was hard.
No, I'm really, I'm glad you did tell that story. I didn't know if that was going to come up at this moment. And I'm glad it did, because I think there are times in leaders that I've talked to, and they've been at organizations and have worked their way up and finally got to either the CEO, president, CEO level, or it's maybe a larger organization, and they're in part of the executive team in a C-suite, and they go through this moment of either, yes, they're ready for the next thing, or whoa, there's something maybe more purposeful. Like, we've done great work here, but it's time for me now to move on to whatever that next thing is. When you had that moment, did you, and you went home and was like, what am I thinking?
Right.
what was that sort of experience like? Because I think there's people at this moment that are going to listen to this that are going to be like, whoa, I had the same, like, what was that maybe on a deeper level for you, where you knew that it was really time, and what that process was like for you?
Well, I was terrified. I came home, we had a great event. Everything was wonderful. But then I came home after the event, and I was like, I've got to sit with this and think about it. And I journal every
Mm-hmm.
morning. And, I started journaling about it, and I was terrified, and I didn't know what would happen next. And the biggest thing I thought of was, what is my family going to think? I've been, the sole provider. This is crazy. How can I not, and also, like, your whole career or your whole time growing up, you're telling your parents or your friends, this is my dream. This is what I want to accomplish. And everyone is so
Right.
proud of you. Or let's face it, you have a big title, people take your calls, things like that. And I'm
Right.
like,
Sure.
wow, if I step away from this could be my whole identity that I'm stepping away from. And
Yeah. Yeah.
given the loss I'd had with my husband, my own mental health struggles after that, I was very scared of what that might do to me. Like, am I pushing myself into a spiral? Like that, is this really me talking? So I had to really work through a lot of that.
Total, what a great moment. I know we'll get into this a little bit more, but for you to even at that time to sort of have the wherewithal going, okay, is this a spiral thing and I'm going to regret that decision? That's one piece of it. And then two, or is it really, no, I mean, this is, in light of all of this that has occurred, is this really my next, is this now the purpose that I need to now dedicate my time, attention, and love to now, even though you had this great career over here. So yeah, I think that's a great poignant thing to sort of bring up, especially with everything, is this? And I think that was a really great question to ask yourself in regards to that. So this one I thought was really very, I love this word. And I mentioned to you when we met that other people have used this word. And you're like, okay, if I need to change it, let me know. And I don't usually will do that. But I the way that you sort of really brought it up and talked to me about that word, and again, you're so better than me, but I really did feel that that this was really an excellent word for you, and that was unwavering.
Yes. So unwavering, and I had hoped I'd come up with words that nobody had ever used, and I think that's impossible. So I didn't succeed there.
Well, the reason why it's almost I mean, there's some, but when you speak to leaders who are as driven and as focused as you are, and have used the term that we'll get into, crazy working mom, I can see why those words would fit well with you.
Yes. So unwavering was really about, I guess a lot of this all goes back to sort of maturing, right? Untethering, but also unwavering, realizing I cannot move away from my core values. And that's so important. And, let's face it, the higher up you get in an organization, or maybe you're dealing with big clients or whatever business you're in, there are times when you're asked or pushed to sacrifice a little bit on your core beliefs for the good of the business.
Yep.
And I realized that, either I'm not cut out for those roles, because I just said, there are certain things that I'm not willing to move off of and sacrifice. And you feel very alone when you're in that CEO role, and it's easy to give in and go, okay, let's just say yes so we can get to the next day or get to the right number.
Sure.
Whatever. But there were certain things that I just wasn't willing to sacrifice. And because I felt like when you do, you just become a part of the machine. And I don't want to be that machine. And I care too much, and I care too much about the people I work with and the end product we were putting out.
Are you able to kind of give an example of some of your sort of non-negotiable values? And have you been in a situation where, and of course, not releasing anything, but just where that has been tested? Because I do feel that. One, I mean, we've seen even in larger organizations where, CEOs' decisions have been very, public out there. And then you have some new CEOs. There's a very big wave of CEOs that are in their early to mid 40s that I think could really learn a lot from your experience on when you're talking about those core values, and really having those non-negotiables and how you've sort of handled yourself in situations where, like I said, maybe that has been tested.
Sure. I mean, I think they're pretty simple. They shouldn't be that hard to uphold, but they are at times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one is
Mm-hmm.
basic human kindness. Just
Mm-hmm.
the understanding that, yes, this is business, they are employees, but they're humans, they have a family, they have emotions. Can we be kind in the way we are? If you do have to release someone, can we deliver that news in a timely way that allows them to, you know, take care of their things rather than you hear of these companies doing these mass, you're going to get an email at 3 o'clock and you'll know whether you have a job or not. Good luck. I mean,
Right. Right.
things like that are
Yes. Yes.
to me not necessary. So basic kindness, really, and incredible honesty. I think everyone deserves direct, constructive criticism, letting them know when something is not right and how we change that and how we update that. I believe fully in hard conversations are usually really good. You have to be very courageous to have them, but it helps everyone. And this constant, smoothing over so we can make it to the next deadline, goal, number, is not going to last for anyone, right? So
Yeah,
those are just a
I
couple of
would
simple
agree.
examples.
Well, and you say they're simple, but they're really quite challenging. That I have even seen in the work that I've done with clients, and that has always been just those two have always been instilled in me. I believe in the honesty. I always believe in, was that the best way I really could have handled that situation? And if it wasn't, then I can at least look back and go, okay, how could I have handled that better? And companies and leaders do have to make really, really hard and difficult decisions. And some of those are financial decisions. Some of those could be merger and acquisition decisions, budgetary, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, I if I can drive anything home with this podcast is really that we all are human, and we all needed to be treated with human decency and respect, because like you said, no one knows what's going on in someone's life, and how we handle things. You're not saying the company is fully responsible for someone, but I just think for a company where employees spend a majority of their time, that if you can do whatever you can to make someone's transition, if you do have to lay them off or have them perform better in the company, I just think that there are all kinds of human decency ways that you can do that. So I do appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely. It's not about being soft, it's about being honest, right? And transparent. The transparency
Correct.
for me is key, because it may be, hey, we have to make a number, so we have to let you go. That person deserves to know that, so they're not questioning their value. They understand why. And yes, it takes a bit longer. It takes a bit more courage and discomfort. You can do it, though. I've had everyone tell me why we can't with legal or with finance or whatever. You can do it. You just have to take the time to figure out how that conversation should be had.
Exactly. I absolutely agree with you. I feel that what you just said is sometimes the excuse. Then let's sit down with legal and have a conversation, because unfortunately, and you and I will get into, you have no idea how someone is going to take this news that they were somehow let go. And there are statistics around people who have, taken their life due to, situations like like this that has occurred because they feel like, oh my gosh, my life is now over because I've now been fired. I'm not going to find anything. So I really just think it's just extremely important that in these situations at work that we do take care of human beings in the best way possible. And like you said, that's not necessarily having to be soft, but that again is letting someone know that this maybe wasn't about them, that they are truly valued and they are going to be great wherever their maybe next opportunity is going to be. So I do appreciate you bringing that up. I did want to shift us a little bit. I loved when I asked you to kind of, when we were sort of talking about some topics that you wanted to really bring up, and one of those that you said that I mentioned earlier was that you were a crazy working mom, and then life happened, and that, of course, that life happened is your husband committed suicide. So I wanted to sort of start from there, and there were just so many really powerful things that you and I were discussing about, and especially how how TMA was there and really, really supported you, because you had no, you didn't know if you were coming and going on in a lot of ways. Would that be a good place for us to start?
Sure.
Okay.
I guess I'll start with the fact that I was a crazy working mom, working, I don't know what number of hours a week with a son and a husband and a big ranch and lots of animals. And our life was very full, and it was my dream for sure. I was living my dream, but boy, we were running, and burning the candle at both ends, like all families are nowadays.
Sure.
And yes, when we lost Michael, it just threw me for this. I can't. There are no words, right? Just something we never expected. I didn't anticipate any of this. There were no signs. It happened. We had been married 18 years, and when he died by suicide, we were just, the whole family was like, what happened? What do we do about this? We don't even know anything about this issue, and the complicated grief that comes with suicide is very different. There's a lot of shame and stigma and guilt and questions, and everyone wants to know why it happened. I don't know why. I will never know why. So I certainly can't tell the neighbor why. I think people, their human nature is they want to be able to put it in a box and go, okay, well, this is why, so that won't happen to us. Well, that's not, sorry, it's not that clean. And I think I told you I had this wonderful therapist woman I talked to, and the way she put it was so good. She said, yeah, suicide is not a casserole death. And I was like, you're so right. People don't come around. And I had a wonderful support group. Don't let me mislead you there, but it's not like everyone from down the road brings you a casserole and celebrates. It's a very scary thing. And there's complicated grief that comes with that. And it's different than, a different kind of, there's all different kinds of grief. This is one that's hard to explain. And there's often a lot of trauma involved. So the healing process is different. It definitely threw me off my rocker. I think I told you I had to use my Maps app on my phone for 3 months just to get to the grocery store, because I just couldn't focus or figure out anything really. And that's why I say my family and friends came and lived with me, helped me with my son. And we, we began to heal together. But I'll tell you, like, as I moved out the other side of this, I realized, gosh, I ran through a lot of years of life checking off my to-do list, and really didn't have perspective for the stuff that mattered. You think you do, and we all say we do. We go, oh, faith,
yes,
family,
yes.
but do you spend time on that? And I didn't do that enough. At least I don't feel like I did. And I worried about the little things a lot. And I always said, I say this all the time, like if there was a way I could just bottle up that perspective I got from this experience of all that little stuff just does not matter, and things don't really shake me anymore. Um, I wish I could give that to everyone in a little bottle as a gift. It says, here, please don't go through a tragedy to earn this. Just open this bottle and understand that
Right.
these little
Right.
things will pass, and just don't waste a minute on worrying that you burned dinner or whatever, the car broke down or you need whatever. Just don't worry about that. Think about um, the things that really matter. And it's really hard to explain, and people that have gone through loss will know what I mean. And it doesn't have to be the same kind of loss I've had, but the trauma of it was certainly big. And then to TMA, like, they were so wonderful to me. They let me take 3 months off work. They let me come back. I said I wanted to answer phones. That's all I thought I could have the capacity to do. And they said, you just come back and sit in your office. We just want you here, and we'll figure out what you can do. And my gosh, they were a huge blessing for me. Um, that's one of the reasons it was so hard to leave. Like, so many of these people are still there, and they've meant the world to me. And then with their support, I was able to do more and more and get my feet under me.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. I think what your friend said to you is so was so poignant when you told me this, that suicide isn't a casserole death, and it really, I mean, it really hit me. I unfortunately have had. Not from a family member, but people who I considered family who have committed suicide. And you're right. There is that question, like, oh, if they could just, say it was this, and then we can all feel more comfortable about this. What, from your opinion, I want to ask this personally, and then I would like to also ask this from a professional standpoint, because I think this is really important, because I don't feel that this topic of suicide is really talked about so openly, because we want to put it in like sort of a, okay, that's a mental health. Yes, it is. Yeah. For sure, but we want to kind of compartmentalize it. What do you feel that people can do within their own family if this happens to them, and then how people can respond? Because you're absolutely right, it's not a casserole type, but people don't know necessarily what to do. And so and I'm not saying that they know what to do to make the person who's going through feel better, but and I don't know if this kind of then fits into Unbroken and your organization in a bit. And then from a company standpoint, because your company, the way that you just described it, I mean, that you couldn't have asked for a better company. And I think companies, large or small, could learn a ton. When we say we're family, I think TMA really showed what that true meaning of family could be, in helping and supporting you with whatever you said you needed.
Yeah, absolutely. They were completely there for me. And, this was pre-COVID, so it wasn't like I could do hybrid. Hybrid wasn't really a thing. So, but they allowed that at the time for me. And I think a greater understanding of situations from the people officer perspective would be helpful to understand. Hey, they lost someone, but this was, they might have lost their aunt, let's say. But what if their aunt raised them as a mother? Like, it's not okay, see you tomorrow, you can take off 2 hours for the funeral. Like, again, it's the same thing as what I
Right.
said earlier. Can you take a minute to understand the context of the situation? Um, Look, I'm not saying we should have longer, more leaves. I know how much that costs a company. I run the P&L. I understand that, longer mat leave is
Yes.
painful, but
Hmm.
needed. So I know there's such a balance, but again, having some context for what went into that so you can care for that person is important at a corporate level. And also prepare the people around them for when they come back, that
Right.
this is what they're willing to share with us, what happened. Here's some great tips on what you can say. You know, that
Yes.
would be
Yes.
incredible, especially in the case of suicide. We share a lot on our socials for Project Unbroken on how you can show up for someone, because that is such an insecure space. Like, what do I say? You can't say, well, they're in a better place, or I know how you feel. I lost my dog
Right.
last week. Like, you got to
Right.
give people
Right. Yeah.
the tools to be there for them. And often it's just, I'm here for you. If you
Yes.
need to scream, I'll come over here and muffle your office door for you, like
Right.
whatever you need.
Right.
And it's just showing that you care. And so we try to provide a lot of those like tips and things like that on posts for folks. But that would be a wonderful thing to have in the toolbox of companies, dealing with any kind of HR issue that someone has, whether it's loss or sickness or whatever, anything with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really important that companies really look into doing that, because I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a suicide death, but like you said, it could be somebody where this is all they had. This was their family, and it happened to be an aunt. And how do we? Because you know, I think being able to have and equip people with tools that doesn't make the person feel even less lonely who went through the experience, or feel more shame, or I really want to talk to you also about that you mentioned to me, and I want to also get into more of how Unbroken helps this. But there is a shame, a stigma around suicide. And I have felt that the only time that I have felt more comfortable in being able to talk about it is when I'm around other people who have unfortunately gone through it and losing a family member or friends, or whatever their loss may look like around suicide. And you were, I would love to talk about what that shame and stigma possibly means for you, and how Project Unbroken helps families around that. Because I think that is one of the biggest preventers from people talking about it, so they can really begin to heal. It's not we're healed and we're done. I do not mean that at all. But I think those are really the biggest things that, it's one of those whispering things like cancer. They have cancer, and it's and we need to really, this happens. And unfortunately it happens. And so I would love to be able to use this time with you to be able to minimize as much of that shame and stigma that is out there around this topic.
Yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I think first I want to share, I think, why some of this, not the shame and stigma necessarily, but why it is such complicated grief. And it does contribute to the shame and stigma. This is actually from Harvard Medical School, and there's a whole paper on it. And it talks about how, as humans, we can't necessarily grasp the fact that the person we love who was the victim was also the perpetrator. And your
Mm-hmm.
brain can't, when you love that person, can't come to terms with that. And that's part of the complicated grief. So you're constantly bouncing around in this pinball machine in your head of emotion. And so that's, the family is going through that while the outside world is just wanting to know why this happened. And it's always been looked at as, something was wrong with them. Um, yeah, they were sick. Something was wrong. They were sick. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, not evil. They were sick.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that is the only way to get past that. And we're seeing a lot of progress in the last, decade for sure on people being willing to talk about it. What I've seen, after my husband passed, we were trying to find a church group, a grief group that would talk about suicide. I literally went to one church and they said, "Oh no, we don't use that word here." How am I supposed to
Wow.
get help in this group? you know? So
Right.
it's come a long way. There are now a number of faith-based groups that have suicide grief support, and actually have them all linked on my website. And then there's, of course, all of the nonprofit organizations, not faith-based, just general wonderful resources that we have linked on our website, where people can go find counselors that specialize, support groups that specialize, on, because it is about just bringing it into the light, showing the scars, talking
Mm-hmm.
about it. And it just, it's funny because my board and we talk about it all the time, obviously. And they laughed the other day because I had an interview and I told my story, and they said it was so surprising to them because the news anchor caught their breath when I said it. And they said, "We forget that it has that effect on other people." And I said, "We do." It's like, oh gosh. I said, I'm the life of the
Yeah.
party. Let me tell you, when I'm, start bringing something up, it's awful. But so getting that out there. But again, with the tragic part of this shame and stigma, you can imagine if it feels like this to an adult, what it must feel like for a child that is already going through all of the awkwardness of trying to grow up, right? And then they have
Right.
this of a parent. And that is why Project Unbroken exists, because children who lose a parent to suicide are 3 times more likely to do it themselves. And that is terrifying. And if we have 30,000 American children losing a parent every year, that's a large group of kids that are at very high risk, and they're currently falling through the cracks because there are not organizations that are addressing this directly, especially financially. So oftentimes these families lose the breadwinner. There's sudden financial instability. And we step in, and that's exactly what we do. Our primary focus is providing financial support to the family so the kids can stay involved in their community, in their extracurricular activities, sports, the arts, debate, band, summer camp, anything that keeps them connected, because doctors say that is the one thing that can help them heal, grow, have hope, is looking forward to something the next day, having community, and staying active in a routine. So we are making sure that mom or dad, the surviving spouse, is not having to cut those things while they're trying to make the everyday bills, right? So we want to make sure we're paying for this. And then beyond the activities, we also fund scholarships for trade school and university. Really trying
That's
to help those
amazing.
kids, just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward.
Yeah, that is amazing. And you're also helping the parent also move forward as well. Because when this happened to you, I mean, you have a son, and you have a very big role, and you were in a company. How were you, after, besides the, trying to figure out on your Google Maps because I'm sure some of this is a huge mental support that you provide to with your, how were you able to after a bit, get up in the morning and really know that you had to show up for him, show up for yourself, because you must be just an incredible role model for so many of the people that are that you're helping through Project Unbroken.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I don't know. I mean, we just all do our best, right? I don't know that there was a recipe for it other than
Of
you
course not.
you,
Yeah.
I felt like I had to be there for my son and I had to try to model that I was working on myself and healing. So I'd go to therapy
Yeah.
and I'd do the things. But in reality, it was just living minute by minute. And eventually that became day by day, week by week. It just got a little bit easier over the years. But my son will tell you, he often says, I'm doing so much better than you, Mom. And I thought I was being such a great model. And he's like, whoa, you're a mess. So, you know,
You said I didn't know we were in a competition. Like,
yeah. But I think,
wow.
the important part is you're there for each other. And you're right. If we can help the kids heal or just have a moment of joy, when my son has a moment of joy, I am over the moon for 3 days, right? It does your heart good
I
when you
bet.
see your kids thrive.
Yes.
So that is the root of what we do. And then, helping those parents. But gosh, therapy and I'm part of an online support group that's global, open 24/7. There's always, it's all women, widows of suicide. Women are on it. And I mean, at 2 a.m., you can wake up and go, oh, I'm feeling this. And someone is usually there and you start chatting.
That's
And
amazing.
I think that probably saved my life, honestly.
And the reason why I wanted to ask you and thank you for being vulnerable and willing to ask that question, because the reason why is sometimes we think, our closest friends are going to necessarily be the true support system for, and sometimes that's really the case, but then sometimes talking to a bunch of strangers is sometimes a lot easier, right? And more just like, okay, I feel like maybe I don't have to be on, or I can just say how I want to say it, than maybe try to buffer it for some friends or family or people that are closest to you, I should say. And that's why I wanted to ask you, because I think that there are some really amazing organizations out there, and you and I will definitely get connected with on that to make sure that those are in the show's description, and how people can absolutely support Project Unbroken. But I think sometimes not knowing the people that are on the other side of the screen can sometimes just be the best kind of people for you just to scream, release, and say however you want to say something.
Yes. And I mean, the other thing that we all know if we've grieved anyone is at some point you grieve them forever. And, at some point, I'm now 8 years out. I don't think my friends want me. My friends are wonderful. They would allow me to call them anytime, but I don't want to call them every month for 8 years at 2 a.m. crying or whatever, and sometimes
Sure.
there's this expectation that you should be better by now. You're not always better by now. So, it's good to have other outlets, because sometimes you just don't want to burden everyone with how you're feeling, and you don't want to feel like a burden. And if you talk to people that have been through it, which is, again, what we do, try to connect people that have had shared experience, is really helpful.
Yeah, and I also think the expectation, I think you brought up something just then, that no one's grief is the same, no matter whatever that type is. And I have never believed that there's a stopping point. I don't see how there really could be. And I think to be able to give yourself that permission, because whatever someone's saying back to you, they're not in that lived experience, and we try to be caring people and want to help and support, and you know, and we feel that if they just move past this and they move it past quicker, then they're going to be so much better off. And that is certainly not necessarily the case for everyone. So I think for you to bring that in context, that you know, it's a continuous, it's continuous work. You're not forgetting, if you will, and you will keep, you know, sort of figuring out what that really means for yourself, and you putting this type of energy and such loving and positive energy and helping other families, I'm sure has got to make you feel, or I hope it does, that you're really making an impact in the world.
Yes, thank you. It's when we first started, I said, can we just send one kid to college? I will die a happy woman. And, you know, now we're over 100 families we've helped. And in 2.5 years.
That is amazing.
So, yeah.
That is amazing.
It's like, oh, you know, wonderful. Wonderful.
I think that is so great. I want to ask you two questions. One, do you feel that if there's anything else that you would like to make sure that you drive home, and two, I also want to make sure that there is nothing that we have left off in regards to Project Unbroken that you want to make sure that you'd like to share as well.
Well, I think the one thing I want to make sure I drive home, and I hope it comes through, but I will just say it, is that, you know, as you speak to so many incredible leaders, and I think all of them have been inspiring in so many different ways. And I hope that everyone listens as you move into these corporate leadership roles. It's so important to remember that people have other things going on in their life that you never see, and you may never know it. And just to be able to lead with authenticity and not be afraid to share what's going on in your life, or share your vulnerabilities, will help your employees to perform better, because they'll feel safe and trusted. And I just think work is such a huge part of our lives. We spend so much time there. And if we can make it a place where you can truly be yourself, and have authentic leaders out there, we're so much more productive, and it will be a better place for us all. I mean, I've had my mentor, Andrew Robinson, was the CEO. He was my boss for 25 years. And he taught me that in every single day and every little thing he did. And I see no better way to lead people than to show your weaknesses as well.
And I want to thank you. That was so beautifully said. I think you also brought something that I really want to drive home with, and that is what you said, that you can't see. That's why we need to check in with people, because if someone breaks their arm or their leg, we see. So we're like, oh my gosh, what happened? Are you okay? And we'll have those conversations. But it's the things sometimes we don't see that we also need to pay just as much of attention. And when you were bringing, made me think about some of these one-on-one times that you have with your employees. I know sometimes in corporations, we want to get into, what's going on in your department and how are we doing and what do you need and all this. And how amazing would it be to start and go, how are you doing? Like, really, how are you doing? And I had a lady on the show recently, and she was telling a story about how one of the employees was in a group, and she was just not really herself, and the people were sort of like, oh, I don't know what's going on with that person, instead of just really kind of asking, and they just don't seem involved and making all these assumptions of what was going on with this particular person. And come to find out, her house burned in a fire.
Oh, gosh.
And so you don't know what's really happening. And that just really just struck a chord with me. And it really impacted me, where I'm like, I need to do really a better job. And when I'm meeting with someone, when I'm saying, how are you doing? Like, really, how are you doing? And my question for you this morning was really, how are you doing? Because, I know, that we were, really going to have such an enriched and personal conversation. So it was really, how are you doing? And I think we just need to pay attention and as leaders, really kind of walk the walk and really model that for people. And that story also just really hit home with me, because you don't know what's happening. So, but thank you for sharing that. And is there anything in regards to Project Unbroken that you feel we haven't? Because I think that your organization is so well needed. And what you are doing from just an education and taking it even a step further, which is helping with the financial support and just all the areas that you have felt families when they're in this situation just are like, what? I wasn't involved in those kinds of things. And being able to, or even if they were, and now a second income is no longer available within their family. But please, if there's anything that you feel that we have left out that you would like to drive home in regards to your organization, please.
Oh, well, thank you. I think just to reiterate that awareness is incredibly important for the subject and for us as a growing nonprofit, being able to share us. So please, find us at projectunbroken.org and on socials. I think, the thing to remember is that grief and loss does not define us forever. So we want to help people move forward through that. So if you know a family in need, please send them our way. We want to be there for them. And we often have different activities, and we do Kintsugi workshops. Back to Unbroken, we do Kintsugi workshops for corporate groups. It's actually a great experience to do together. So I'd love to share with anyone that has interest.
That is amazing. We will definitely make sure that we are going to co-market this episode together. We are going to drive home the awareness and how companies and individuals can definitely get involved with Project Unbroken. So thank you for that, Trina. So this is a time where you can ask me a question. This is the segment called Ask Dr. Alison. So what question do you have for me?
Okay, so I feel like this was hard. This was harder than the unwords. But
well, you did come up with a question, and then we ended up talking about it when we met, and you're like, oh my God, that could have been my question.
Yes, I know. Okay. So I think given your history, your studies, your career, and now all the incredible people you've talked to, you've uncovered so many insights, had so many interesting conversations with people. I would like to know if there's one belief in human nature that has changed for you after all of those.
That's a really great question. When, and let me know if this answers the question.
Okay.
When I started the podcast, I really thought I was going to have more men that would jump at the opportunity than women. I did have some women early adopters that came on, and I love them to this day because they let me really kind of play around with my idea on how I wanted the podcast to be and hopefully be. But what I didn't realize at the time, the more women and very strong, successful just from a title, from financial, that they felt that this was a show that they could really talk about the human side of business and whatever that really meant for them. And it shocked me because there were some that were going all the way back to childhood. Some of them were talking about how cancer and how that, they were traveling all over the world and this impactful moment happened to them and how that shifted, or women that were like, I finally got to the corner office. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I mean, I haven't even asked them to go to that level. And, but it has, I mean, when I talked about the human side, I was more thinking like, oh, when you're, waking up at night and you're trying to figure out payroll or, just not as really in depth. I mean, I could have only dreamed. I could really only dream about that. And these were women that were just like, and the onward effect, I also thought was going to be very business driven. Like, oh, so this was definitely something that really resonated with my leadership style. Or when I knew I was starting out this way in my career, I knew that by the time I got to this level, this was going to be the word. But instead, it was almost, if someone used the word unafraid, they would talk about how their childhood was and how that really instilled at them not to be afraid. And they would get very specific about that and how that from childhood to where they are today, how that word has really evolved for them. And I was like, wow, like it just absolutely was, it was shocking to me. I really didn't. And then when people say, wow, you're doing really great work, I'm like, I never looked at this as doing really great work. And then, it challenged me. It really challenged me, in how I do the podcast, the level of conversation, and to be able to have a guest like you come, where you and I could probably sit and talk all day long about the incredible people that you got to work with at TMA, and instead you're that's still a huge part of your life, but then something really impactful, deeply impactful happened, and how that changed sort of the meaning and possibly a purpose of now where Project Unbroken now exists. So does that answer your question?
It does. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I thought that was a really great question. I mean, I do feel very, I feel very blessed that the guests that I've had on the show have been willing to really get deep in their conversations in regards to their life and business. And I feel because of that, this show is really helping the young leaders of today to really think about what they want to do, how they want to do it, how life can get in the way, and how, you think you're going down one path and then the next. And I think having leaders really talk about that, and their experiences, real life experiences, not the one that we see on social media, but really listening to leaders with real life talk about their experiences has really been a gift for me to be able to bring out to the world. So I absolutely want to thank you for being on the show today, Trina.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Allison. Thank you for the gift of giving us a very comfortable place to talk about this and open up. I think it's fabulous.
I really appreciate that. Really, more than you know. That wraps up today's episode of the Young Conversations podcast. Thank you so much, Trina, for coming on the show today. We will make sure that everybody knows about Project Unbroken. And if this episode spoke to you, which I do not know how it could not, please don't forget to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so we can keep these amazing unconversations going.